today I'm joined by Christopher Payne, the director of Love Tomorrow.
You know, my teacher used to say, we are fools whether we dance or not, so we might as well dance.
So Chris, tell me, how did this film come about?
Well, I'd been a scriptwriter for a while, and I'd always had an idea about a woman who discovers something about her fiancé, kind of runs out into the night, and sort of a couple of hours later meets somebody else, and then really has to decide whether she's going to stay with this guy or go back to her fiancé. The sort of spark that lit the touch paper, if you like, was seeing some contemporary dance at the Place in London, and I was really blown away by how much the dancers could communicate through movement and how much the music sort of carried a lot of this emotion, and it was sort of so expressive. And I decided that I could make if I could make the two characters dancers, the story would really kind of come alive for me, because you know, I'm a real fan of the kind of boy meets girl genre of films, but they're very kind of dialogue driven, and I thought here was a sort of opportunity to express the turning points of their kind of developing relationship through movement, which is sort of kind of very cinematic. So that's kind of really how it came about.
Were you actually a fan of dance, or do you actually do it yourself? Or have
No,
you?
I'd seen dance in musicals, but as I started to get to know dancers, and particularly work with the two dancers who appear in the film, because it's a love story between two dancers, you realise that a ballet dancer is someone who sort of harbours the sort of soul of an artist in the chassis of a world-class athlete.
That's a good well put.
They really are they're sort of as fit as boxers, and they can, I met, girls in the Royal Ballet, sort of that high, and sort of tiny girls, but who could jump sort of 4 or 5 foot in the air and land and spin, and the impact on their sort of, on their limbs was sort of extraordinary, but yet at the same time, they could do all this in an incredibly sort of controlled way. Ballet is a sort of an art form that demands perfection. That's where the meaning comes from. You're watching the human body perform something that is perfect, and that's what's inspiring about it. But in order to deliver that perfection, dancers have to train so hard. The training is relentless, and so being around people like that was sort of really inspiring, and I think sort of added to our determination to do it with professional dancers and stuff rather than actors.
Was there any reason for those two particular dancers? I mean, did you audition a lot?
Stephanie, the producer, said, the first thing we've got to do is talk to the Ballet Boys. Ballet Boys are Emmy award-winning filmmakers. They used to be at the Royal Ballet. They have made fantastic films about dance and are very keen to sort of demystify ballet. And secondly, they really understand how dance kind of works on the screen. It's very different on the stage. They knew that the camera is going to be moving, and they know what kind of what kind of dance moves read kind of well on the screen. So we went to speak to them, and they said, if you're doing research, you've got to talk to Cindy Jourdain, who was at that time had just left the Royal Ballet, and I went to Sadler's Wells to meet her, and it was extraordinary. She sort of walked through the door.
It's perfect timing for you.
Well, we just thought, I looked at the producer and we thought, this is the woman, even before she opened her mouth. It was, I've never had it before, in my previous film, I spent sort of 3 months casting, and we thought we'd be casting for months and months. With Arinel Vargas, who is her co-lead, the guy, Arinel is a principal dancer at the English National Ballet, and the character's Cuban. There are not many Cubans in London. We thought we would have to go to America to find somebody, or to South America, but he once again was perfect. We were very lucky. He spoke great English. He's a terrific dancer. He's still dancing at the English National Ballet.
Did you ever feel like maybe you're taking a risk with not getting actors but more dancers to act? Or is that something
we knew it was, yes, it was. It's not a risk so much. We didn't have any choice. We wanted the dance to grow organically from the action. In the story, the characters, that's their connection. In our film, we wanted the dance to be very organic to the story, so and to reflect what's happening to the two characters, and also to be experiential from the audience point of view. We really wanted the audience to have a sense of what it feels like to dance, because you're watching characters, as they dance, change their opinions about each other, and so the cameraman is focusing on their faces as much as their bodies. We're not in long shot. It's very much very intimate. So.
The actors, how close were they to your vision, and how much leeway do you think you gave them, or did you want to give them?
I kind of like to meet actors halfway, really. And with Aaron now, the same thing. He had more of an influence on his character. He changed his character slightly. Initially on the script, the character was a very kind of in-your-face, irritating guy who tries to break down this girl, trying to find out what's wrong with her, and it's kind of really sort of, trying to seduce her in a not very subtle way. And Aaron said, the kind of guys I know wouldn't do it like that. They'd be much more subtle. They'd play the long game. They'd be sort of far more charming.
So you were quite flexible, which I guess personally, like I say, I think that's always a good ground to be on. How would you prefer these people to enjoy this? Do you prefer the mainstream multiplexes, or do you prefer to give everyone the choice and comfort of their own sofa?
I don't. I've got to confess, I watch a lot of films on a big project. I've got a sort of decent home cinema, but no, you have to watch films in cinemas as much as possible, and I do try. I've got 2 small children, and hopefully that stage of having to stay in will pass quite soon. You have to see a film with an audience to really understand, like the way musicians have to play to an audience to understand how it works and the beats and the timing of it. And I think Bergman said film is as close to music than it is to theatre or the novel. And that's right. And I think I love some of we're really lucky in London. We have some fabulous.
Have you ever sneaked into your own screening or a premiere just to see audience reactions and just to sit at the back?
Yeah, I think a lot of you have to really. You have to sort of go. I think a part of your education as a filmmaker is that seeing where the audiences are wrapped with it. What they find. You can tell what an audience is thinking. It's really strange. You can tell when it just goes quieter when they're. When they're enjoying it. Yes.
It's like eating with a good meal. It goes, if they're not saying anything, they're enjoying. So
yes, exactly.
That's always, I guess that's a relief for you.
Yes, it plays, you film screens a lot of times before you even get to a cinema. You're screening for friends and audiences and people you don't know, and you get a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't. So. I think it's a film, I'm trying to say this modestly, it's a film that plays really well in the cinema because it's about physical intimacy. And I think being in a dark space, sitting close to somebody else and watching 2 people as they kind of look at each other and try to fathom each other out means that it sort of plays well on that.
Was there anything that someone said or did or pointed out that really maybe got you a bit hot under the collar for your initial reaction?
Do you know what? No, it's a film that does ask a lot of the audience. For those who don't, it's a film that, not giving too much away, but the protagonist, the girl in question, doesn't say much in the first 20 minutes. The audience has to work hard. You're trying to fathom what she's about. Yeah, some people don't like that, and they kind of get you, and it's a shame. But we've had so many kind of great responses and great questions from people who've seen it in cinemas and who we know just get it and know why we made it and have been really moved by it. It's a film that is meant to move, to creep up on you emotionally. As the kind of their feelings about each other kind of creep up on them.
So now your DVD is out, you see it in the stores. How does that feel for you? Do you feel happy, pride, or do you think there's a niggling feeling of, I should have done this, I could have made it better?
Oh, always, yeah, always. I don't know any filmmakers. Jonathan Glazer once told me that he was only happy with 3 scenes in Sexy Beast. You can't think, well, that's a pretty polished film to me. Yeah, there's always things you change or would like to try again, I'd love to make another film with dancers. I'd love to work with the 2 guys again, Cindy and Aaron. I found, lots of stories sort of came up from being in the sort of dance community that were really interesting and stuff. The means of production are coming down, but it's a lot, in some ways it's a lot easier to shoot a film now. We're kind of fortunate.
That is true.
I'd like to spend longer rehearsing a film and then shooting. I watched End of Watch recently, and I was really interested to hear the producer say that they rehearsed for 5 months and then shot in 20 days. Just rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing. So they completely inhabited the characters. They knew completely what they were getting. And I think with so many people making films nowadays, I think you really have to know, the films really have to be sort of pretty perfect to have a chance of just getting out there. And the only way to do that is to kind of think like a rock band, to play and play and play, to rehearse and rehearse and shoot and shoot and shoot until you've got something that
become that character,
becomes something different that has a sort of a spark to it, that that you can. One of my favourite scenes in our film was because it was the it was when everybody was attuned to the story, and it was a complete it was a total collaboration from everyone involved. It's a dance that happens on the street, where one of the characters tells another character that dance is lost or it's meaningless, and he refutes this by just doing this sort of impromptu dance at the side of the road, which sounds incredibly, the dangers of it becoming cliched were significant to the extent where it could sort of really fell the story. But we kind of knew it would work, and so we worked with the composer, came down to the rehearsal studios, came up with this sort of accordion track. He wanted to sort of give it a sense of, even though it was a sort of classical piece, there was sort of a kind of an intimation towards tango, so he used the accordion. What the costume slightly reflected that. The guy takes off his jacket and he's wearing a sort of a waistcoat, and he looks very much like a sort of, looks very kind of Argentinian at that particular moment. Cindy completely sells the scene because she's looking around going, what on earth is he doing? And then you see her become slowly and more entranced by what he's doing. And lastly, Arinel, it was a dance that he choreographed himself, based on a piece that he knew from a dancer that he knew in Cuba. So it's one of these sort of collaborations where initially you have this just a very, very simple idea. There's no dialogue in the scene, but it works up through everybody being on their game, and those kind of working those kind of things. That's that's where the real excitement comes from in filmmaking. Where it all comes alive, where you're all sort of conjuring up something that has kind of meaning.
Peaks into one.
Yes, and it's all blended. Everything's the location, the lighting, everything blends into to make something that's sort of perfect.
The main thing actually to get it this far is last year, in 2012, you got the jury prize at the Rain Dance. Congratulations for that.
Yes, we won Best UK Feature. We've won jury prize at Fort Lauderdale Film Festival. I think there are a lot of Cubans in the audience, that's probably why.
Has it opened any doors or given you broader ideas of what you want to do next?
Yeah, I'm really fortunate to be attached to a film with Bedlam Productions, who are one of the companies who made The King's Speech. It's a true story about what can I say without giving too much away? It's a true story about a British punk band that gets caught up in a foreign election campaign. So it's a sort of comedy about these idiots who've, a comedy actually, which is very different, who have kind of been paying lip service to, sticking it to the man, if you like, and then suddenly find themselves in a real kind of political fight. And it's about whether they sort of stick to their kind of punk lyrics or bottle out. But,
when could we expect that?
Well, hopefully that'll shoot next year.
Any advice for either actors or filmmakers?
The big lesson filmmakers have to learn is that the business is changing very quickly. The landscape of film is changing very quickly. They have to think very differently from the way filmmakers did of even my generation or younger. You've got to start thinking like a rock band. You've got to get together with other people who think like you do, and you've got to hone and hone and hone, because there's so many films now being made.
So many.
And you don't need, you just need the story, and you just got to be very attuned to what's happening in the world and make sure you get that, you have something to say, really. So that's really the advice. Don't get distracted by the technology or even the sort of social media or whatever. It's just work at it and work at it and work at it and work at your one idea that is good.
It's shot beautifully, and I would recommend anyone to go and see it.
Thank
if
you.
you watch it.
Thank you. Yeah.
It is, I believe, online as well on a few
Yep.
websites and to stream, and the
Yep.
DVD's available already. Wish you all the best for your next project, and hopefully have you near soon.
That'd be great.